Welcome back to Old Charles, Australia. Today, we're diving into the story of one of the most infamous, misunderstood, and frankly, fascinating coins in modern Australian history. It's a coin that sits in thousands of jars, drawers, and piggy banks across the country, often surrounded by a myth of immense wealth. If you've heard rumors about a 50-cent coin being worth thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars, this is the coin they're talking about. But is it true? What's the real story? And what is its actual value in 2024? Strap in, because this is a tale of mints, mistakes, and market mania. To understand the 1981 50 cent, we have to go back. Way back to 1966, when Australia decimalized its currency. The original 50-cent coin, introduced that year, was, it was 80% silver, it was hefty, and it was beautiful. It featured the magnificent Stuart Devlin design of the Australian coat of arms. But there was a problem. By 1966, the price of silver was skyrocketing. The intrinsic metal value of this coin was quickly approaching, and then exceeding, its 50-cent face value. This is a big no-no for a circulating coin. It meant people were starting to hoard them, or even worse, melt them down for profit, so, in 1969, the Royal Australian Mint pulled it from circulation. For over a decade, we didn't have a 50-cent coin in our pockets. We used notes for larger transactions. But that was inefficient. The Mint needed a new, cheaper, and more practical solution. That solution arrived in 1979. The new 50-cent piece. It was no longer silver, but a cupronickel alloy. And most noticeably, it was no longer round. It had 12 sides, a dodecagon. This was a genius move. It was a distinctive shape, easy to identify by touch, and difficult to counterfeit. It was the practical, modern coin Australia needed, but what about all the old, round, silver 50-cent coins from 1966, 1967, 1968, and 1969? Well, they were officially demonetized. They were no longer legal tender. They became, effectively, bullion coins, valued for their silver content and collectability. Now, we get to 1981. The 12-sided coin was 2 years old and circulating perfectly. The Royal Australian Mint in Canberra was busy producing millions of them. But there was also the Royal Mint in London, which had a long history of striking coins for Australia. In 1981, the RAM in Canberra had a huge demand for 1-cent and 2-cent coins. To free up their presses, they outsourced the production of the 12-sided 50-cent coin for that year to the Royal Mint in London. Meanwhile, back in London, they also had a separate order, to strike a small number of the old, round 50-cent coins. Not for circulation, of course. These were for official mint sets and proof sets for collectors. These sets often include coins that are no longer in circulation, as a numismatic record. And here is where the legend begins. The story goes that a small number of these new, 1981 dated, round 50-cent planchets, the blank metal discs, accidentally found their way into the bins holding the planchets for the 12-sided circulating coins. A handful of the wrong blanks were fed into the press, and they were struck with the 1981 date and the standard design, the result. An undetermined number, estimates range from 200,000 to as low as 50,000, of the 1981 round 50-cent coins were struck and released into general circulation. They were, by all accounts, a minting error. A mule, if you will, of the old design on a new, non-silver planchet, accidentally released into the wild. For a few years, nobody noticed. These round 1981 coins slipped into piggy banks and cash registers, indistinguishable at a glance from their valuable silver predecessors to the untrained eye. But eventually, the sharp-eyed collectors pounced. The rumor mill started turning. And this is where we have to separate fact from fiction. The 1981 round 50 cent is not a silver coin. It is made of the same cupronickel as the 12-sided coin. It has no precious metal value. Its value is derived 100% from its rarity and its status as a mint error. Let's break this down by condition, because as with all coins, condition is everything. 1. Circulated, worn. If you have a 1981 round 50 cent that's been in someone's pocket, with scratches, where on the high points of the kangaroo and emu, and maybe a few dings, it's still valuable. But we're not talking about a house deposit. A well-circulated example can be worth anywhere from $80 to $200 AUD, depending on just how much where there is. Point 2. Uncirculated, mint condition. This is where the value jumps. An uncirculated coin, one that has never been in public circulation, has sharp details, and its original luster, these are highly sought after. Prices for a standard uncirculated coin can range from $250 to $500 Australian dollars. 3. Proof-like or in official mint sets. Remember those collector sets I mentioned? Some 1981 round coins were intentionally struck to a brilliant, mirror-like, proof finish and included in official Royal Mint sets. These were meant to be there. They are not errors, but they are still very rare and desirable. A coin from one of these sets, especially if still in its original packaging, can be worth $600 to over $1,000 AUD. And the creme de la creme? Coins that have been professionally graded by services like PCGS or NGC. A coin graded MS65, mint state 65, will be worth significantly more than one graded MS62. A top-tier graded example, like an MS67, could indeed fetch $2,000 AUD or more at a premium auction. So, to be clear, while you might see headlines screaming $10,000 coin, that is the extreme, absolute upper echelon for a perfect, top graded coin in a frenzied auction. For the vast majority, more expensive to produce than coins. The mint needed a new 50-cent coin, but it had to be economically viable. The complex shape made it much harder to counterfeit. The new 12-sided 50-cent coin was a practical and successful workhorse for the economy. The old, round silver coins settled into their new life as collectibles and bullion items. This brings us to the central mystery. If the round coin was discontinued in 1969, how did a round, non-silver 50-cent coin with a 1981 date come to exist? The story involves two mints and a logistical mix-up. Point 1. The two mints. In 1981, the Royal Australian Mint, RAM, in Canberra was overwhelmed with producing the new, small 1 and 2 cent coins. To free up its presses, it outsourced the production of the circulating 12-sided 50-cent coins for that year to the Royal Mint in London. Point 2. The collector order *. Simultaneously, the Royal Mint in London had a separate, much smaller order, to produce official mint sets and proof sets for collectors. These sets traditionally included examples of all circulating coins, but also often included the old, round design of the 50-cent piece as a numismatic item, struck in the same copper-nickel alloy as the new coins. These were never intended for circulation, they were for collectors who wanted a complete set. Point 3. The error *. The most widely accepted theory is that during the production process in London, a batch of the round planchets, blanks, prepared for these collector set coins was accidentally fed into the presses that were striking the circulating 12-sided coins. The result was an unknown number of 1981 dated, round, copper-nickel 50-cent coins that were struck and then released into general circulation alongside the normal 12-sided coins. Estimates of the mintage vary wildly, from 200,000 down to as few as 50,000, but no official records exist, cementing its status as a mint error. For the first few years, these odd round coins went largely unnoticed by the public, mixed in with the old silver ones still kept in drawers. However, by the mid-1980s, astute coin collectors and dealers began to identify them. Many people, hearing about a rare 1981 round 50-cent coin, confused it with the valuable silver 50-cent coins from the 1960s. This confusion led to inflated rumors of its value. Headlines began to appear in newspapers and magazines, "Check your change for this $10,000 coin." While these headlines were sensationalist, they cemented the coin's place in Australian popular culture. Every jar of old coins in the nation was suddenly a potential treasure chest. These are a separate category from the circulation strike errors. They were intentionally struck by the Royal Mint, London for official collector sets. These coins have a mirror-like background and frosted, matte design elements. They were struck with special polished dies on polished planchets. They were never intended for circulation and are housed in original mint sets.